Hi, my name is Krista Dietrich. I'm a librarian in the Literature and Fiction Department of the Central Branch of the Los Angeles Public Library. We are so pleased to host this International Women's Day reading, highlighting the voices of trailblazing Ghanaian women authors and literary leaders. This reading marks the public launch of a new collaboration between Writers Project Ghana and the Los Angeles Public Library, and we couldn't be more excited. This collaboration between Writers Project Ghana and the Los Angeles Public Library aims to cultivate international literary relationships and expand the presence of African authors in the LAPL collection, in particular, to increase the visibility of Ghanaian authors and their work to patrons of LAPL and the larger literary community in the United States. This will enhance the conversation between cultures and create collaborations that will generate opportunities for greater global interactions and understanding. Writers Project Ghana is a nonprofit based in Ghana and the US for the sole purpose of promoting Ghanaian literature and writing through creative writing workshops, discussion groups, public readings, online publishing, and the establishment of a small press. The WPG Center in Accra, the capital of Ghana, works with all aspects of the Ghanaian literary community to foster economic development through the arts. It serves as a hub of Ghanaian literary culture and is a hothouse for nurturing both emerging and mature writers of all abilities. This event was curated by Mamle Wolo, director of Writers Project Ghana and author of The Kaya Girl, which was published by Little Brown, and coordinated by Dr. Amy Shimshon-Santo, who is the author of poetry collections Catastrophic Molting and Even the Milky Way is Undocumented. Joining Amy as co-MC today is A'bena Awuku-Larbi, a polylingual poet and legal practitioner whose work appears in the Contemporary Ghanaian Writers series and the Big Yellow Post. Her professional background includes work on energy management, literary activism with Action Aid, menstrual hygiene management with Happy Monthlies Ghana, and gender-based violence awareness with Young Urban Women's Movement Ghana. It is my pleasure to welcome Amy, A'bena, and our panel of authors today.
Thank you, Krista. It's great to be together. A'bena, how are you? How is Accra?
Accra is amazing. It's amazing, really, except the weather has been quite harsh. It's been so hot, it's been so warm, and I can barely stand the sun. How is Los Angeles?
Oh my gosh, it was snowing and hailing last week, which we've never had in our entire lives.
I think you sent me some pictures during the week, right? It just looked like a dreary place, so uncomfortable.
It's amazing. It's been a few years now. We've been writing together through the pandemic and online together through the Moisa workshops. And here we are now adding more friends to the circle, connecting our two cities. And we have an amazing lineup for today.
Yes.
So how is the library? I know one of the things that we've been doing is we're bringing authors in to read to people in Los Angeles, and also Writers Project Ghana has been curating a new list of authors to include in the collection. And A'bena, also, you've had access to check out the library. What do you think of the digital archives?
Yeah, I love the library. I have been able to read so many poetry books. I told you the last time that I did books from Phil Clifton, Ilya Kaminsky, books I wouldn't regularly or readily get on the market over here. And particularly, I was excited to get like Water for Chocolate by Laura Esquivel. You remember it was quite difficult to get that book, and we kept looking here and there to be able to get it. I'm really excited we're able to do this. We're able to connect all the way from Moisa, right? And it's been such a long literary journey, and we've been able to weave people across the communities in Ghana, in Nigeria, in Kenya, and from your side, I think Los Angeles, Mexico, and all these. I love what we are making. I love what we are creating together.
Me too. Well said. It's really a benefit. I'm glad to be able to share our friendship, expand it, because in LA, families come home speaking, over 200 languages in Los Angeles. So we've only just scratched the surface of what that might mean for the future of our literatures and our literary community, and for education. In LA, where we call everybody Angelinos, what do you call folks who live in Accra?
I think it will be quite difficult to get because Accra is the homeland of an ethnic group we call the Gans, and it has gradually become a melting pot of people from all ethnicities. There are Khans, the Northerners, everyone. And I think a popular language you'd hear in town is Tree, some kind of generalized street Tree. So you'd probably hear people in Accra being called Nkranfo because in Tree, Accra is Nkran. And Nkran, I loved the history behind Nkran because it was after there are these big red ants that are native to the Accra soil. And then the Tree people just look at it and go like, oh, Nkran. And then it's known by that. So when people say Nkranfo, it's like red ant people. And that really makes me chuckle. So yeah, you could call us Nkranfo.
It's funny. It's also like a reminder that all of our language begins with our connection to the planet and to the earth, right? And hopefully with this relationship, we'll be able to imagine each other better and take care of our earth and our planet better too. So should we tell everyone about our featured authors?
Yes, I am really excited to introduce authors for today. And I particularly love their names because it just screams at you. These are Ghanaian women who carry several histories. So I'm going to go through the list, and I'm really hoping when they come on, they can correct me if I get their names wrong. Our featured authors for today are Ekua Brew-Hammond, Boakyewaa Glover, Petra Aba Asamoah, Nana Darkoa Sekyiamah. Today, we are going to be really privileged to hear from these Ghanaian women writers whose collective work presents a brilliant and vibrant depiction of womanhood. In this session, we will redefine the color blue. We will experience self-discovery, freedom, and healing in our sexuality. We will explore the complexities and the life of a woman in the corporate world. And we're also going to think about the ways in which a woman is the product of her choices and how these determine her future.
Ashe. Well, I can't think of a better way to say Feliz Dia de la Mujer, Feliz Dia da Mulher.
Yes. And I think I'm going to say Happy International Women's Day. I wanted to say this in Chi, but maybe we'll do this at the end when we are giving our closing remarks.
Oh, let's hear it. Let's hear it. Go for it.
Shall we go ahead and then invite our first speaker?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, amazing. Our first reader is Ekua Brew-Hammond. Ekua Brew-Hammond is the author of the children's picture book, Blue, A History of the Color, as deep as the sea and as wide as the sky. She's also the editor of Relations, an anthology of African and diaspora voices, of which Kirkus Review said in a starred review, this smart, generous collection is a true gift. Every month, Ekua co-leads a writing fellowship whose mission is to write light into darkness. We are honored to hear from her today. Let's welcome Ekua Brew-Hammond. Over to you, Ekua.
My name is Ekua Brew-Hammond, and I want to just thank you so much, A'bena, for that gracious introduction. I want to thank you, Amy, for bringing this together. And I also want to thank the Writers Project of Ghana, which has been incredibly supportive of me and my work for the last 13 years. And I actually have a statement from the director, Mamle Wolo, which she asked me to share. So I'm going to share that before I begin reading my work. So she writes, since 2009, the Writers Project of Ghana has been bringing writers together to help strengthen our writing community and forge links beyond our borders. There's no roadmap to becoming a published writer, and it can be a lonely, economically challenging business. But there is strength in numbers. and we are especially dedicated to helping new writers find their way into the community. We reach out through our various programs, activities, and website, and have forged rich links with writers at home and internationally. We organize public readings, poetry recitals, and a weekly live radio program on City FM called WPG on City, featuring both published and unpublished writers. We also run writing workshops, including the annual Mo Isa Writing Workshops, which began in 2018. In collaboration with the Goethe Institute, we have, since 2010, delivered the longest-running public reading series in Ghana, dubbed Ghana Voices, featuring prominent and new Ghanaian writers, as well as writers from other countries, including Nigeria, Togo, South Africa, the United States, Israel, Zimbabwe, Botswana, and the United Kingdom. We offer publishing opportunities through our website, our journal, and through our poetry and prose anthologies, of which we have so far published 3. Look Where You Have Gone to Sit, poetry, According to Sources, poetry, and The Sea Has Drowned the Fish, short stories and creative nonfiction. In 2017, together with the Goethe Institute Ghana, we held the first edition of our annual literary festival, Peja, in Accra. It has taken place with resounding success every year since then, seeing the in-person and virtual participation of dozens of writers and writing organizations from across Accra, Europe, Canada, and USA. Peja has now become one of the most important annual events on the Ghanaian cultural calendar. We are delighted to have begun this year with a collaboration with the Los Angeles Public Library through our dear friend and literary colleague, Amy Shimshon-Santo, and are most grateful to Los Angeles Public Library for granting access to their extensive facilities to writers in Ghana through this collaboration. This is the first of what we hope will be many joint events between us, and we would like to say a big thank you to everyone involved. So thank you again. Those are the words of Mamle Wolo, one of the directors of the Writers Project of Ghana. And now I am delighted to share an excerpt of an anthology I recently edited. It is called Relations, an Anthology of African Voices. So I'll share with you a little from the introduction. Years ago, I was at a party in New York. I was single, and I presume the man I stood on an invisible island with was unattached too. Separate from the clusters of aspiring photographers and models, and friends like me who had tagged along to this photographer's studio, the two of us huddled together, gripping cups of clever bravado, our heads tilted toward one another at an angle of intrigue and lust. He was witty and worldly, and as we spoke, we discovered we were both from other places. He had moved to the United States from Morocco, and I was the daughter of Ghanaian immigrants who had sent me to live and school in Ghana when I was 12 years old. "Oh, how cool," he said. "I've never been to Africa." I blinked at my cup and then at him, sure I hadn't heard right. "But aren't you Moroccan?" "Yes," he said, the blank stare in his eyes not following my point. "But Morocco is in Africa." He appeared genuinely unconvinced. There was a whiteboard in the middle of the studio. I left our island to draw a map of Africa on it and traced out 2 jagged rectangles. "Morocco," I said, pointing to the rectangle in the top left corner. "Ghana," I said of the other one. "Africa," I concluded. After a slight pause, he nodded with the sincere acquiescence of a knowledge transfer. The spell of flirtation broken, we floated away from each other, absorbed by new conversations, our atoll permanently abandoned. Unsure how or why a man born and raised on the African continent truly seemed to believe he had never been to Africa, I wish I had probed him further. But I was still forming my own sense of who I was, and I had not come to the party to interrogate the vastness of African identity. I never forgot the exchange, though. And years later, when a Frenchman I was dating noted casually that I was from Black Africa, I felt the same befuddlement and irritation at the implication in his racialized delineation of the 48 countries known as Sub-Saharan Africa that cover the northern, southern, eastern, and western regions of the continent. I told him to never describe them in that way again, especially not in public. As far as I was and am concerned, the distinction between Black Africa or Sub-Saharan Africa and Africa's northernmost nations reflects the continuation of a centuries-old distancing of lighter-skinned peoples from darker-skinned peoples, largely due to the stigma projected onto the enslaved African. Shuki El Hamel's Black Morocco, A History of Slavery, Race, and Islam, notes how the legacy of the enslavement of Blacks has complicated contemporary racial relations and Black identity in the country. I would add that it has complicated racial relations in every country where people of African descent live. In October 2021, while I was on a week-long stay in Cape Verde, the stunning necklace of 10 islands off the northwest coast of Africa, a man on the island of São Vicente explained to me that Cape Verdeans, whether rightly or wrongly, don't really consider themselves African. He pointed to the Portuguese heritage evident in the local complexion as his exhibit. But to me, therein lies the rub. The relations between the Portuguese colonizers who controlled the archipelago and the people they kidnapped from their homes and families in Black Africa, and the others who came by force or by fare to settle there, have complicated the assignation to a single identity, so that what one claims or doesn't is a deliberate statement, a choice of who and what they want to be associated with. Of course we're African, another Cape Verdean man from the island of Sant'Antao told me, with the Pan-African conviction of Bob Marley. Look where we are. Relations obfuscate the convenient and comfortable narratives we tell ourselves about who we are. They expose our hypocrisies and truths, and they attest to our inextricability from one another. They trounce boundaries erected by religion, class, race, and rhetoric. They force us to admit we're deeply interested in each other. And because there is so much at stake in this admission, relations are rife with the pain of disappointment, compromise, rejection, and exploitation. They are equally heavy with expectation, hope, and obligation. They are pregnant with possibility. The relationships in my life were on my mind when I pitched this anthology in August 2020, the 5th month of the global coronavirus pandemic that had abruptly sent the world into quarantine. Businesses and schools were shuttered, public transportation was restricted to essential workers, travel was initially banned, then highly discouraged, and a flurry of edicts from national and global health organizations advised people to maintain a distance of 6 feet or 1 meter from each other and wear protective face masks. When the pandemic was officially announced in March, I was based in Queens, New York. My siblings were 2 different bridges away in Brooklyn, and the man I love was resident on the West Coast. For the first time in my adult life, I felt acutely alone. Usually, I flew to visit my parents in Ghana at least once a year. Would that still be possible? I had relished attending the Peja and Ake literary festivals in Accra and Lagos, respectively, the past 2 years. Would I ever again be able to engage with a community of writers and friends whom I had come to look forward to seeing in person? I thought too about the network of family and friendships I had spread across Africa, North America, and Europe that I wasn't sure when I'd get to see again. And I thought of my relationship with myself, how much I admired that I wasn't needy and had a full life of exciting travel and work, and how much my independence was predicated on the assumption that the people and systems that made my nomadic life possible would always be available to me. I was palpably weakened by the shaking of that presumption and the realization that, like everyone else, I needed people. And I'll end there. Thank you again for this incredible opportunity.
Thank you so much, Nanekia. That was a profound reading, and it put me in such deep thoughts about relations across borders. Thank you very much. At this point, we are going to have our next reader, and I'm delighted to announce her. Our next author is Petra Aba Asamoah. Petra Aba Asamoah is a writer, a marketing executive, and an author. She has 2 publications, Sales 101, What Everyone Should Know About Sales, a non-fiction marketing reader, and her second publication, Jangle Dance, which reflects close to 2 decades of experience in the corporate world. Jangle Dance is the story of two women and how they navigate life, love, corporate politics, and their own internal struggles. Petra writes from a Pan African perspective with a focus on social realism. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Petra Aba Asamoah for her reading. Over to you, Petra.
Thank you, A'bena. And thank you so much to Amy and Writers Project Ghana for this opportunity. It's exciting to be celebrating International Women's Day with all the wonderful writers on this event. And I look forward to being able to continue all of the interesting things that this collaboration will bring to us. I'm going to be reading from my book, Jungle Dance. I'm reading from chapter 1, and then I'll read from a second chapter. Chapter 1, page 3 of the book. Yomba had to resist the temptation to check her barrage of instant messages. She failed. Twitter was buzzing as usual. The word Joseph was top of the trends. Someone had made a joke about the people who ate cat meat as a delicacy in Ghana and wondered why it was called Joseph. Then the Joseph joke started a trend. If there was one thing she knew aggravated her condition, it was her trying to catch up with what was going on in the ever-busy world of social media. She could never catch up. There was always something that needed more time to figure out. And there were hundreds of messages from the WhatsApp chat group she was in. One from her primary school, one from junior high school, one for her immediate family, and several for work. She had lost count of the number of groups. A good number of them she had muted, but she did not exit any of them because she did not want to have to explain anything to anyone. Yomba wished she did not have to go to work. Whoever made it a life rule that work had to be every weekday was responsible for her misery. The weekends were short and the weekdays were super long. She was not living her best life, as it had been portrayed when she was younger. Go to school, get good grades, get a good job, and enjoy life. She was realizing that being an adult was hard work. She felt trapped. If she did not have to deal with the questions from her mother and her aunts, she would easily quit. Then she would have to figure out the other critical matter, how to pay her bills. Being an adult came with bills, bills, and more bills. She had moved out of her parents' home as soon as she got a permanent job. That is when she was introduced to the real world, the world of bills. If she could figure out how to pay her bills and buy all the things she bought without having to actually go to work, explaining to A'bena and Sister Mondo would be a breeze. They both thought that she was taking the blessing of finding a job straight out of university for granted, and they never failed to remind her. Do you know that there's an association of unemployed graduates in Ghana? You have a job, keep it and stop whining, her mom once said. She will go to work, and for the upteen's time, be frustrated and depressed. She closed her eyes, tried to take her mind off what was coming in the morning, and soon sleep came calling. I'm also reading from chapter 9, page 132. Yomba had been on a steady ascent in her work, and as she began to get more comfortable with how she reported her progress and her challenges during the team meetings, she had no reason to be terrified of Maribel, but she was. Why did she miss Colinius though? Even though Maribel was a pleasant person, she came across as a tyrannical leader who never listened to the team. She also did not seem to understand their frustrations. She hardly offered to assist the team on sales calls and would demand of them tight deadlines on projects. She also seemed totally at sea when there were technical sales issues to resolve, and that made Yomba quite frustrated. For instance, Kwame, one of her team members, had encountered a challenge with a prospective customer who had a previous bad experience with the company. And when the company was trying to win back, everyone expected that Mirabel would offer to go with Kwame to see the client, She did not. Kwame, after a few weeks of reporting on the same issue, was compelled to ask out of frustration, Madam, I was hoping you'd go with me to see Mr. Kabutu. I'm sure since you're the boss, he may feel more comfortable talking to you and will calm down a bit on the issue. When Mr. Cornelius was here, that is what he used to do to help us with difficult customers. But I am not Cornelius, Maribel said sternly, and I do not babysit adults at work. If you cannot do your job, we should be having a conversation on how to put you on a performance improvement plan, instead of you talking about how Cornelius did his job and how you expect me to do mine. Kwame had no response. The room went dead silent. That was the end of the conversation on the matter, and Kwame neither reported on the account again nor brought it up for discussion at any of their meetings. In another instance, she had used the word they had never heard to describe the performance of one of their colleagues. This level of performance is sheer criminal, she had said. Criminal? That word was associated with jail time. Then there was that one time she had asked them to submit their sales reports on a daily basis by 4 p.m. And even though they had explained to her that 4 p.m. was unrealistic, since they were out of the office most days till about 5 p.m., she insisted. Yomba had been the one to speak up at that minute. One of those times she hoped she had kept silent. Maribel, is it okay if we sent it to you later in the evening? Maribel did not respond for a few seconds and then looked at Yomba. 4 p.m., Yomba. 4 p.m. is when I want to receive your reports. Thanks for asking. Cornelius had not insisted on strict delivery timelines for the submission of reports. In fact, the convention was that when he demanded for something by close of business, it actually meant by midnight of the day in question. Maribel was not having any of that, and obviously, the team was struggling with adjusting to her style of leadership. Interestingly, however, after the first 3 meetings, Bosse had stopped attending their meetings. The rumor mill had it that Bosse had opted to attend because she was confident about Maribel's approach. What they did not know was that Maribel had requested that Bosse allow her to manage her team directly without any interference. She wanted time to work with the team and develop a system that worked. She believed that having the country manager attending their sales meetings was putting pressure on the team and their performance would be affected in the long term. Bosse agreed with her and offered to support her whenever she needed assistance. That's the end of my reading. Thank you very much.
Was really amazing. You are such a lovely, brilliant storyteller. There's something they say in P that Masuma Yamede. My literally translation is like my ears are sweetening me. I really want to hear you read the whole thing. And I
Thank you,
love
A'bena.
you spoke about Joseph, which is another name for cat meat. You can imagine my surprise when I heard Charles was the name you call Paul. So when you said, I'm like, oh, I know this one. I know this one. That was brilliant, Petra. Thank you
Thanks,
so
A'bena.
much.
Thank you.
Audience, we would move to our next author right now. And I'm sure by this time you're really enjoying yourself. It's like entering into pure bliss. You would enter into another heaven with our next author. Our next author is Boakyewaa Glover. Boakyewaa Glover is a Ghanaian writer, organizational psychologist, human resources professional, and media/communication strategist. She's the author of Circles, a romantic drama, Tendai, science fiction, and The Justice, a political thriller. She has also written a plethora of articles, short stories, poems, and other works. Amazingly, and most notably, Boakyewaa was a 2020 nominee under the category of English Literature Poetry for the prestigious Ghana Millennium Excellence Award. It is such a pleasure to have you here, Boakyewaa. You're welcome.
Thank you so much, A'bena. Thank you. And also thanks to Writers Project Ghana. I mean, it's been an amazing organization for me personally, and also with the new relationship with LA Public Library and Amy. I really appreciate this wonderful opportunity in honor of International Women's Day. So I'm going to read from my upcoming book, Commitment. Before I read, I do want to give brief context to the book. So Commitment is a passion project for me. It's been in the works for about 5 years now and expected to be released this year, 2023. So Commitment is the story of duty and sacrifice, of love and loss, and the decisions that sort of shape a person's life. So Commitment also incorporates two main Ghanaian-centric themes. The first theme is duty and family sacrifice, the way in which Ghanaians give up and sacrifice their plans and paths for their lives to follow the expectations of parents and other loved ones. And the second theme is the known but unspoken ways that women leverage relationships to sustain their lifestyles, for basic survival or just to get by. And the men who take advantage of their vulnerability. So the thinking sometimes is consent and love do not pay bills or cover expensive medical costs for parents and family members. So Commitment wraps the story of sacrifice within this narrative of dependence on others. The scene I'm going to read from is between Leona, the main protagonist, and Adansi, the main antagonist. So Lee is Ghanaian American, Ivy League educated, and she's moved back home to Ghana to care for a critically ill parent. But she's struggling with everything, particularly her finances. And Adansi is a billionaire, the second richest man in Africa, who has taken an interest in Lee. So for this scene, Lee and Adansi are at an event that he took her to under the guise of discussing business, and they're out on a private balcony. Come and sit, please. I won't bite. I won't even touch, Adansi said. Lee paused. The love seat on the balcony was massive and roomy. She could manage to sit in the corner and not right next to him. 5 minutes wouldn't hurt. Please, he added, sensing her hesitation. She sat down as far from him as she could. Adansi noticed and he chuckled. Her evasive antics amused him. I like you, Lee, Adansi said, looking intensely at her. Lee shifted uncomfortably. I'm flattered, but I'm not looking for that right now. I just wanted to get your business, legitimately, but not like this. Lee, I want you to be my girlfriend. Lee laughed. What? You're married and you have tons of girlfriends and mistresses. You're called the landlord of Africa. And word is you have a woman in every single city on this continent. Adansi was not fazed. My reputation has been exaggerated. I am very selective about who I spend time with. I have a wife, yes, but she lives in the US, hardly comes to Ghana. And yes, there are a few other women, but not as many as reported. Lee waved her hand dismissively. Okay. I am still not interested. I wanted your business. That is it. I am not going to get involved with a married man and be part of some selective harem of women. She stood up. She'd heard enough. She walked hurriedly to the door, desperate to leave and get home. $30,000 a month. Lee's hand paused on the doorknob. What did you say? You're a businesswoman, so I guess I should have used that approach, outline the financial perks first. As my girlfriend, you would get $30,000 a month, a luxury car fully managed and maintained, a house fully managed and maintained, and unlimited free stay and meals at any hotel or residence of mine in any country. That's an offer designed just for you. But I'm open to a counter offer. I do enjoy negotiations. Lee let go of the doorknob and sat back down next to him. She stared out silently at the city before her. Accra was wide awake, pulsating with lights and activity, just as her heart felt, beating rapidly. $30,000 a month? That was insane. She could do so much with that type of money. She could move her parents into the new home that Adansi was offering, finish their current home renovations, and keep her business going for months. But he said girlfriend, meaning it wouldn't be platonic. Sex would be involved for sure. Lee stood up again. She had to draw the line here. She was desperate, but not that desperate. She wasn't going to sleep with a married man who was nearly 60 years old just for money. She wasn't even remotely attracted to him. I can't do this. I can't have sex with someone just for money. I work for my money. Adansi laughed. She really amused him. He stood up and faced her. My dear, I'm offering you more than money. I'm offering you access. I'm offering you a lifestyle, travel to exotic places, vacations anywhere you want, shopping, pampering. I am offering you financial freedom. You will never have to worry about money again, or petty expenses like paying domestic staff, buying fuel, or any form of maintenance related to your car or home. There is nothing you would need that I wouldn't provide for you. Still no, Lee said firmly. Just relax, think about it, and submit a counteroffer. Come up with anything you want. I will consider it. I want you, he said softly. He was persistent. She had to give him that. But she was determined to be stronger. She wasn't Demi Moore. This indecent proposal was not going to work on her. Good night, Lee said. And without waiting for a reply, she darted out the door. That's it for my reading. Thank you again, A'bena, and to Writers Project and everybody else.
This is so amazing. As you were reading, I was looking for a white handkerchief nearby to wave because I was loving this. In lieu of the handkerchief, I have a white tissue here. I'm going to wave it. Yeah. I'm so excited because you described the scene well. I felt like I was sitting right beside them, like a fly on the wall, listening to this conversation. This is wonderful. This is amazing. You are such a brilliant writer. Someone said a prolific writer, and I like that word. I'm so touched. I'm so touched.
Commitment will come out later in 2023. Thank you.
Okay. We'll be looking forward to it. Thank you so much. Boakyewaa. Our next author, well, there is a personal story behind this author. So one time I was just hanging out and my boyfriend calls me and goes like, babes, have you ever read The Sex Lives of African Women? I'm like, what's going on? And what will even make you so interested in this book? Because he never recommends books for me. And he goes like, you should go and read it. I said, oh, okay. And ladies and gentlemen, audience, our next author is Nana Darkoa Sekyiamah. Nana Darkoa Sekyiamah is the author of The Sex Lives of African Women, which my boyfriend recommended, and which Publishers Weekly described as an astonishing report on the quest for sexual liberation in their starred review. It was also listed by The Economist as the best book of the year. She's also co-founder of Adventures from the Bedrooms of African Women, a website, podcast, and festival that publishes and creates content that tells stories of African women's experiences around sex, sexuality, and pleasure. I am proud, excited, touched to warmly welcome Nana Darkoa Sekyiamah to take the stage. Nana Darkoa, over to you.
Thank you so much, A'bena, and thank you for sharing that personal anecdote. I really love hearing how people discovered the sex lives of African women. So just to give some context for readers, especially those based in the US, I assume, because this is an event at the LA Public Library, the paperback edition just came out. And part of what I really love about the paperback edition is it includes journaling prompts. So even for those who already have the hardcover, you might want to check out the paperback. And actually the journaling prompts are also available for free online. So just, do a search and you'll find it. So The Sex Lives of African Women, I just want to give some context before I read, is a nonfiction book based on interviews I conducted with, 32 women from different parts of the continent and the diaspora, asking them about their experiences of sex, sexuality, and pleasure. And I'm actually going to just read the very first story, which is a story of a woman called Nura, who basically traveled to Senegal to get married to a man. And I'm just going to go into it. My sister wives and I have nothing in common. Well, that's not exactly true. We have His Excellency in common. We are all married to the same man. Ishmael and I met in 2018 on Mazmatch, a dating app for Muslims looking to get married. By then, I had been a convert for about 4 years, and I knew that I needed to expand my circle of potential suitors. I wasn't born into a Muslim family, and so I couldn't rely on my own networks to meet the kind of man that I wanted to be with. The Muslim men I met in my own country, Kenya, were incredibly conservative, and I wanted to meet a man who was more like me, well-traveled and with a global view of the world. When Ishmael and I started chatting, our conversations felt very easy. I found myself laughing a lot. He was also respectful. He didn't even hit on me. Around the same time, my aunt, who lives in Canada, had started a relationship with a Congolese man. She told me how much he adored her and how loved she felt. I started to wonder if this was just how Francophone men were. Then Ishmael told me he wanted to travel to Nairobi to see me. I told him that I didn't want to meet him unless we were meeting as husband and wife. And so an imam married us online. When we met, I thought his pictures and even our video chats had not captured him accurately. He looks like the stereotype of a Senegalese man, 6 feet tall and skinny. The phrase melanin poppin was coined to describe people like him. He also has this air of a quiet, confident masculinity. He practices martial arts and is really strong. You wouldn't think he was in his late 40s if you met him. The first time we met, we spent 4 days together in a hotel. All we did was fuck and pray. That was really important to me. Sensuality and spirituality are two sides of the same coin, and I wanted to be with a partner I could learn the faith with, from a place of curiosity and not oppression. I found Islam in my late 30s. I had been searching for a spiritual practice that spoke to who I am as a Black African woman, and in the Islamic faith, I found one that also spoke to the social and environmental justice issues that are important to me. When Ishmael left Nairobi, I was in a daze. I had found this man, married, and had the most incredible bonding experience with him. And now he was gone. 2 months later, I flew to Senegal and visited him for 2 months. He arranged for me to stay in an apartment owned by his sister, and the whole experience felt like dating while married. That period taught me that I can actually be committed to someone else. When you're legally bound to a person, you just don't walk out on them. You have to show up, not only for yourself, but for the partnership you're in. It's not a simple matter of, can I deal with this person? Because it's not about the other person changing. It's about how you deal with who they are intrinsically and how they are evolving. That initial experience taught me that you can love and care for someone even if they're very different from you. Ishmael is a traditional man. He's always done what he's expected to do as a responsible Senegalese man. The most radical thing he's done has been to marry me, a woman who's in her 40s, an Anglophone, someone from a foreign country who doesn't speak Wolof or French and doesn't know his culture and traditions. The expectation in Senegal is that if a man is going to stray out of the constraints of who he is expected to marry, then he would be with a white woman. My biggest struggle is with the gender norms that I am expected to conform to look pretty, but not too pretty, to sit in a corner quietly and not voice my opinions in public, to agree with my husband when we have an audience. That is not how I grew up. I'm the firstborn of a single mom. My dad died when I was 16 years old, and so my mom was very clearly the head of the household. While I, as a firstborn child, had to take on a lot of responsibilities. It pisses me off that I now have to perform the subservient role. Meanwhile, you only have to look at Islamic history to understand the active role that women have always played in our communities. Women actually went into battle with the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. One of his wives was a scholar who taught women and men. There were women who were traders, and so the idea that a woman's space is in the domestic realm and her role is to be docile is one that I struggle with. Our private life is completely different. We're playful when we spend time together. I feel like I can let my inner child out with him, and that's really important to me. We talk a lot about faith and politics. He teases me about being an artist. He likes to say, I am a simple Senegalese man and you're a philosopher. People who know him in the outside world would be shocked to see what he's like with me in private. Until a few years ago, I had absolutely no desire to get married. And then I converted. And with that came this deep desire for heterosexual partnerships. That shook me. I was never one of those girls who wanted to get married or who had visualized exactly what their future wedding was going to be like. The desire for marriage came from the healing that my faith brought me, including reckoning with the loss of my father. Prior to converting, I had never fully grappled with that deep hunger I felt for a father, and Islam allowed me to acknowledge that. I began to recognize that I was looking for my father in everything I did. Another part of the deep desire that I had for marriage was a need for companionship and sex. I also knew that marriage could give me a type of leverage, an opportunity that could help me move from one space to another. We live on a continent where our status as women is very precarious. I believe this applies across the board, whether you're bi, straight, or queer, and so heterosexual marriage at least provides a measure of protection to women. I think this is a question that Black and African women need to ask themselves more often. What can I do to preserve myself and my children in a way that allows them to move on to the next level? And I will stop here, and I hope you're encouraged to continue the story for yourself. Thank you so much.
Yes, we are encouraged. You know, your reading made me think about something Dr. Kwame Nkrumah said some 66 years ago, because today is Ghana's Independence Day, and we are recording this on Ghana's Independence Day. And I think I'm going to tweak it a bit for women. So your work makes me feel like saying, at long last, women of Ghana, the battle has ended. Our sexual lives are free forever. And
Amen to
that you brought this out. Thank you so much, Nana Darkoa. This is amazing. Thank you for being able to put this narrative out there. Amy!
Gosh, can you imagine?
Did you love this? I want to scream. Pure bliss.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Well, we're going to bring everyone in a moment, but before we bring everyone in for questions, will you remind us how to celebrate International Women's Day in Tree, and then we'll bring all the authors in to
yes. And I think it's perfect. It's a perfect summary of what has happened. And you know, when we're discussing it, I was telling you it's difficult to find one particular phrase for Happy International Women's Day. Oh. And so I told you I'm going to translate it into a phrase that goes like, today marks the day where in the whole world women are being celebrated in tea.
There we go.
And da what de emia ho afahye owiase nyina na ema enipa wo ho ye nika papa na efata se ye bom abaso enkanka na ema na omo wasa ejumade eso Yeah, bom wabaso, yeah, domwasipi. So all I'm saying is that we are celebrating women, and especially the women on this program,
Yeah.
who are
Let's bring everyone
amazing,
in.
and we thank them so much for the beauties you have given us. I'm so happy. I feel so fulfilled. I am so excited. You see it in my voice and in my face. This is brilliant. So brilliant for Ghanaian women and young writers like myself. I'm sure everyone else who's going to be watching this would think the same thing and are going to be really, really inspired.
Ashe. Beautiful. I love this. Well, I'm going to invite you, A'bena, to chime in however you see fit. I know you asked me to hold this a little bit with the Q&A, but whenever you feel like jumping in, please do. So we're going to start with Nana Darkoa with was it important for you to gather African and diasporic voices in the anthology Relations? And I also just want to say, I mean, you're such a leader as an editor and a framer of like context, but if you could tell us a little bit about your amazing children's book, Blue, too, I would just love that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Blue is, oh, my little baby heart. Blue is, it's called Blue, A History of the Color as Deep as the Sea and as Wide as the Sky. And it is a history of the color as we know it. It's just a really delight to write, and I'm so excited about how it's been received. So thank you for mentioning Blue. Relations was really important to me because I wanted to bring the diversity of our voices, styles, and perspectives together in one literary offering so that, I mean, forgetting about the fact that maybe outsiders may look at our work and maybe think like, oh, it's one way or another. I really wanted us to be in conversation with each other across our borders. So, for example, because of the language barriers, unless a work is translated, if we only read in English, for example, we're unable to read works by storytellers who write in other languages. And I wanted us to be able to read these works. So I worked with translators to bring in some writers across these different countries. I also wanted us to have an honest exchange about the frustration, pain, and even resentment within our groups. Some things that we talk about amongst ourselves, but we don't really air. And particularly when it came to the relationship between Africans and diasporans, I wanted us to sort of have that honest exchange together. So that's why it was important to me to put this anthology together.
Congratulations. It's a tremendous act of literary, leadership. So thank you so much for your efforts. Boakyewaa, let's see. What's next for you in your writing life? I know you're a woman of dreams. What's bubbling up for you next?
Thank you so much, Amy. So next for me is getting Commitment published this year, hopefully. But a bigger dream of mine is getting my work and content on screen. So my style is more entertainment, more light than heavy prose. My themes are often romance with mystery and action and dabs of controversial topics like the one I just read from. And I think my content would really translate very well to the screen. And lots of fans of my books have that same reaction every time they read it. Oh, this could be a movie. I mean, with the Justice, Caleb Osei, who's one of the protagonists in the book, everyone keeps saying he's like the Ghana James Bond. Alex Cross from James Patterson, or this or that, Jack Ryan. So I do think, and I do believe it as well, that my content would translate very well to the screen. So I'm working relentlessly towards that goal, hoping for something with Netflix or Amazon or Apple TV or DSTV. I think it's really something that I'm trying to focus on and see if I can make happen. So that's what I'm hoping will happen next.
Fantastic. From your mouth to the ears of the universe for fulfillment. Miss Petra, oh my gosh. When you said she could never
thank you
catch
so
up.
much, Boakyewaa. Let's go to Petra. Petra, we are going to talk about jungle dance. We often allude to the fact that representation matters, and jungle dance seems to be representing the corporate woman. Why did you choose this as your focus?
Thanks, A'bena. Toni Morrison said, if there's a book you want to read that hasn't been written, then write it. And that for me was like the first and most important reason why I wrote Jungle Dance. But why did I write about the corporate woman? I think the story of the corporate woman is quite prevalent. We know about her, we read about her, we talk about her, we are here in most instances, but we really haven't listened to her speak from her voice and listen to what goes on beyond just the nice job titles, beyond the very interesting images that we see, especially in our world of social media, where you're seeing all the nice pictures and how LinkedIn and everything else portrays the corporate world. I wanted to tell the story from a perspective that we haven't quite paid attention to. I wanted to tell the story about the ups and the downs. I wanted to tell the story about the complexities. I wanted to tell the story of what it means to an individual woman in terms of how she's balancing all of the competing issues in her life. But it was important for me to tell it from her perspective. And to a large extent, it's the story of different women, but I put together in two main characters. So a young woman, Yomba, who is at the entry level, who's just starting out and facing all of the interesting things that you face once you're an entry level person in the corporate world. And then a more senior executive who was running her own business and as an entrepreneur, took a high profile job in another country. So she moved from Nigeria to Ghana, and what that also presented to her. And it was an interesting journey, and it's been very interesting listening to all of the feedback from readers and the perspectives that have come about from it. But it was key for me to write a book that I would have wanted to read many years ago, but I never got to read. So that for me is the key reason why I wrote Jungle Dance.
Thank you so much, Petra. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'll move to you, Nana Darkoa. I am really interested in this, and everyone wants to know what inspired you to create the 6 Lives of African Women.
Thanks for that question, A'bena. So I have been writing about sex and sexuality for quite a while. In 2009, my friend Malika and I started Adventures from the Bedrooms of African Women, which is a blog where we started off initially sharing our own personal, intimate experiences. And then what would happen is, people would like slide in our DMs and say, oh, I have the story to tell you. And they would share with us their own experiences. So we started to encourage people to submit their stories to us, to publish on the blog. And over time, I just felt like there were so many interesting stories out there when it came to the experiences of African women in terms of sex and sexuality. But I never saw those stories anywhere. I felt like, in the media, particularly in Western media, portrayals of African women were really limited to our reproductive function or seen as vectors of disease. We were never really portrayed as women with agency, women with, autonomy and power of our own bodies. And I just was like, well, the reality I know is different. So I initially had a very ambitious, totally unrealistic goal. I thought I'd interview an African woman from every country on the continent. So unrealistic, especially when, we keep getting many more countries. And then, at some point in time, I was like, okay, I'll interview as many African women as I can have access to, including people from the diaspora. So in that way, similarly to Nana Ekua, it was important to me to have African women from the continent and diaspora, be in conversation with each other. And that's really how the book came into being.
Oh,
that's
thank
fantastic.
you so much. Yeah.
So we're actually near the end of our time. So we're going to thank everyone and toss this back to the library. But we want to thank everyone for showing up, for opening these new doors to relations. Wow, I'm calling in from Los Angeles. You see the siren in the background. The reality, as I know, is different. Nana Darkoa just said that. And I just think all of you are holding space for stories that are important to you and that the whole world is eager to hear. So thank you for taking the time in your creative practice to share your stories. Thank you for making time in your lives to be together and to reach out. And we're really eager from this side of the ocean to read you and hear you and welcome you into relationship. And we'll see what grows next. Thank you so much for your leadership, your literary leadership.
Thank you.
So I think it's time to pass it back to Krista. And thank you, A'bena, for being such a gracious MC.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, A'bena and Amy. I couldn't agree with you more, Amy, about us being eager to hear more works like this and more voices. And these ones were just tremendous, what these ladies shared today. Thank you so much. I know that we here at the Los Angeles Public Library are really looking forward to growing this partnership with Writers Project Ghana. And today was an excellent start. We encourage everyone to support these writers. Their works are readily available online. We encourage you to follow them on social media. And I know I'm going to be checking out a lot of these ladies' work very, very soon. Thanks again for joining us on International Women's Day. And thank you so much to these fabulous Ghanaian writers for sharing their time and talent. Have a good one.